Hi, following the last two episodes, we're gonna tackle another few last commercial games for DOS. And I think we have an interesting mix of great hits, obscure little games, and absolute stinkers today. So let's start with one of the worst, quote-unquote, modern games for DOS. Soldier Boyz is a terrible, awful, appalling and horrendous game, based on HBO's movie of the same title and loosely following its plot. Not as bad as Pro Soccer 2190 on Amiga, but you know, that one was one in a million trash. Soldier Boyz with a Z is also the last FMV-based game to release on DOS. And it's such a second-rate product in fact, that some of the professionals reviewing it at the time failed to land on a number higher than 0 in its score. So you can imagine what we're having a pleasure to witness here today. Also, I don't think it's 0 bad, I mean it's definitely atrocious, but it's working and from a mechanical point of view it's playable too, so at least a 1 or 2 out of 10 is a valid score if you ask me. Anyway, Soldier Boyz's gameplay is an adaptation of the movie and an on-rail shooter which took some creative and notable changes in certain spots, diverging from the source material's plot, but its end goal remained pretty much the same. Vietnamese terrorist Vinh Moc shot down the United Nations plane flying over Vietnam and from the wreck of it kidnapped Gabrielle Prescott, daughter of an American billionaire. Why was the daughter of a billionaire on the UN plane? Hard to tell, I've not seen the movie, but clearly it was not something that escaped Vinh, and he planned for it, took his chances and scored big. The rest of the plot resolves kinda like one of those weaker A-Team episodes, so Prescott, the billionaire, and I've no idea why I keep mentioning it, seeks out and hires Major Howard Tolliver, an ex-marine and a badass extraordinaire, to assemble a team of daring and highly trained vigilantes and find and rescue his daughter. The only difference here being that Tolliver does not have a band of merry plane-fearing outlaws on call, and he needs to recruit them from life sentence-serving inmates from the prison he works in, which he does, somehow ignoring how the entire prison system works. So, they're the game's budget version of DC's Suicide Squad, devoid of looks, character, personality, superpowers and semi-decent plot to follow. And they all land in the heart of Vietnamese jungle, ready for anything. From this point onward, armed with your trusty mouse cursor, limitless patience and resistance to cringe galore, you take control and you'll need to traverse through dense Vietnamese jungle, seeking out Gabrielle and killing hundreds of bad guys who just happen to reside in the forest behind every second tree or bush. The story is composed out of dozens of separate video clips playing one after another, and when each is running you'll need to decide in a split second whether you wanna go all out and shoot everything moving that you see or ask questions. And as the saying goes, shoot first and ask questions later. There's no better game than Soldier Boyz to prove it correct, trust me. I mean, sure, you miss on a bit of a background info or plot hints when going for the innocents, but you're not penalized in any other way and the clips are rather cringe, so you know, is it really a lose or are you just winning faster? One way or another, however you approach the game, be it slow or sonic fast, it will still take only 40 minutes to an hour at most to complete it. And it's not going to be very satisfying, on the contrary, I think you'll feel even more empty after going through it than you did before. It's just so stupid and mindless, and not in a funny way. In essence, it's shooting for the sake of shooting, and you never really feel that there's any reason behind it, despite it being pretty clearly explained and based on a rather bad movie. The presentation is, well, I should really end it just like that and say the presentation is. A bit cheeky, but also on point. Still, I'm not gonna, and as you can clearly see, the quality of the video footage is very low. It's grainy, lacks definition and color, and runs a bit choppy. Sounds are not much better either. Play it or not, it's the last FMV game we've got on DOS, and good, cause clearly we needed no more. Mortal Kombat Trilogy is my third most favorite 2D Mortal Kombat after first and second respectively, and the only one other than the first that I really enjoyed completing. Anyway, since we're on the subject of the trilogy and not any other, it's obviously a 2D versus fighting game combining characters from the first 3 titles for an Ultimate Fighter matchup of the 90s. And you can play as literally any of the characters that we saw in previous games. So Kano, Sub-Zero, Scorpion, Liu Kang, Johnny Cage, Raiden, Sonya, Reptile Baraka, Jax, Kitana, Mylina, Kang Lao, Shang Tsung, Sindel, Sector, Striker, Nightwolf, Shiva, Smoke Rain, Jade, Ermac, second Liu Kang, because why the hell not, once definitely not enough, Noob Saibot, second, this time unmasked and less lore-friendly Sub-Zero, and I always imagined him sporting a mustache under the mask, which he clearly does not have. Cyrax, second Smoke, in Cyber Ninja form, whatever that may mean, maybe hip implants as he's rather old, who knows. Cabal, Goro, Kintaro, Motaro, Bolo Yang and Shao Kahn. and only one of these last 4 former bosses is not in the game. Can you guess which one? Make sure to let me know in the comments below. He may have been a unit in his own right, but he's definitely not present in the series in any shape or form. Each of the 32 included characters have their moves, fatalities and looks sourced from their own games, and they play as well as they did originally. Backgrounds are also a combination of old and new and are as fantastic as the cast of fighters is. Objectively speaking, the Trilogy is the very best 2D iteration in a way too long-running by now series. Personally, I love the first game the most, but I'm biased towards it, and this bias is fueled with gallons of nostalgia and familiarity and nothing else. If I was to metaphorically stand aside and compare them all, Trilogy was easily the best, at least when it comes to variety, features and responsiveness of controls. One thing that it fails at least in my opinion, and sadly that's also a very important thing for me personally, is the atmosphere. I just feel nothing when playing Trilogy. As compared to the first 2 titles that not only gave me shivers with their very climatic musical tunes and respective title screens, but also set the mood with their intros. In first, with the story and genesis of the tournament described on a Goro-themed background, and then short clips of all fighters playing out their moments of glory. And in second, much simpler, with the starry sky and slowly starting thunderstorm, cutting through it with lightning and leaving Roman numeral 2 in it, in dark blood red coloring. They were both short and not sophisticated in any meaning of the word, but epic feeling to my young self nonetheless, if that even makes sense. If I was to go off my memory only, I could not tell you anything at all about Trilogy's startup/title screen or the accompanying tune. I've literally no idea how it starts or sounds. All that aside, personal feelings especially, Mortal Kombat Trilogy is a really competent, fun and bucketfuls of blood spilling fighter that will no doubt keep you and your friends entertained and competing for weeks on end. Or will end those friendships over disagreements who'll get to play as Sub-Zero or Scorpion first. Both options are equally as feasible. Burnout Championship Drag Racing has nothing to do with more popular and well-known Criterion Games' Burnout series that premiered 3 years later in 2001. It's a drag racing simulation, and for the time it released in, pretty good one at that. Well, the only one too, but that's beside the point. And it's all about racing on short linear tracks, optimizing your car's performance and polishing your driving skills to become the fastest racer out there. Out where? There. On one of the game's included 20 real-life drag racing tracks, recreated as faithfully as the tech in 1998 allowed for. Burnout's gameplay is split in 2, the preparation stage and the racing stage. In first, you choose one of the 20 available chassis and customize everything that goes in and around it. The engine, transmission, wing, tires, suspension and many more. Truly making the car your own, or breaking it in the process if you're me and have no idea what you're doing. That's possible too. The number of options and components here is just breathtaking, and all types of grease monkeys and tinkering enthusiasts will find it as, if not more fulfilling than the racing itself, creating their fast and ultimate road beasts. Is it easy to make a car that would be the speed monster in Burnout? If you're not versed with drag racing physics, it will take a while, and a little trial and error too. But ultimately, when you get a hang of it, it will feel really rewarding. Other than your speedster's inner configuration, there's a lot to consider while racing. Weather, track's altitude and lane attributes, all of these play an important role in how you should drive. And racing itself, well, it too naturally follows the rules of the sport to the letter and is based on a very strict and precise regimen. First, you have to burn out a few times to warm up your tires, then inch to the staging area, from where after getting a green light, you'll zoom away pressing the pedal to the metal while trying to maintain a straight line halt on your car. It's easier said than done, but surprisingly fun if you learn how. Well, more fun to those who are into the whole drag sport, rather than those who just look for the bog standard arcade racing. Also these, who love to dig deep, seeking ways to shave off that fraction of a second, changing seemingly unimportant things like exhaust manifold or valve diameters, they love it too. I mean, I have no idea what these two are, and I don't mean in English, I mean overall, in my own language either. Exhaust manifold sounds like a very strong constipation medicine that you could only get with a prescription, and valve diameters like something you'd do when having issues performing in bed. It would probably be better explained when used in a sentence, I feel. So let me try. Oh man, Julie, I'm so sorry. I swear it had never happened before. I really don't know what happened here. Please, just give me a minute. I'll quickly use the washroom and adjust my valve diameter so we could try again, okay? Does it make sense now, guys? To me neither. Anyway, so yeah, this Burnout is not for me. On a side note, whenever I hear drag racing, I really don't think of the official sport, but more like the illegal street races, you know, those we've seen in Fast and Furious. Fast and what? Well, Family cars, family respect, family cars, family Dominic Toretto, family, then even more cars, maybe a bit of tuning and some guns, more family, even more family after that, and to round it all up, family, that Fast and Furious. So I appreciate this Burnout for what it is and what it aimed to do, largely succeeding I must add, and find it to be a very respectable last commercial racing simulation for DOS, even if it's not a game for me at all. XCOM Apocalypse is a third game in the original XCOM series and a direct follow-up to The Terror from the Deep. It's also a game that turned the entire franchise upside down, and my second most favorite DOS game of 1997, trailing behind Fallout only. At its start, Apocalypse assumes that after the last war with alien invaders, things have not gone well for the humans. We've won, but barely. Those that survived live in a huge self-sufficient city of Mega Primus. The civilization took a while to rebuild, and as soon as everything appeared to be finally changing for the better, strange portals started showing up in the sky over the city. And surprise surprise, it's aliens again, and this time they've even more of a threat than ever before. So, XCOM is needed once again to save the day and humanity at the same time. The main core of the series is sustained in the Apocalypse, meaning that research, development, base micro and macro management, tactical squad-based combat during missions and ship-to-ship air combat respectively are all preserved. A bit changed, sure, but still present in the game and easy to grasp for whomever played the earlier titles. As usual, you will also have to carefully manage your budget, as you're nearly never going to be in a situation where you have too much cash lying around gathering dust. And soldiers, vehicles and scientists all have to be recruited and equipped. To the teeth, no less. Now, let's get into what's different, and there's a lot of it. For starters, beautiful detailed SVGA graphics replaced older, lower style-based 2D engine, and this new presentation allowed for much more to be seen at once, making those longer missions easier to manage without having to constantly scroll through huge combat maps. And since we're on the subject, combat can be either turn-based or real-time. It's clear that the game was designed with this new real-time approach in mind, but even turn-based lovers such as myself will quickly learn to adapt and either use it or stick to tried and tested turns. I did. Played it in turns, that is, and didn't feel as if I was missing anything or being handicapped because of that. There are many more interesting maps in Apocalypse to fight with aliens now too, so you'll be tackling outworldly threats in slums, corporate buildings and their headquarters, glass-encased farms, factories, apartment buildings and in wreckages of downed UFOs to name a few. Most weapons, upgrades and vehicles are entirely new as well, and a pleasure to manufacture and then use against the invaders. Many of the aliens are also different, new versions of all the Xenos. And some of them are really imaginative and clearly inspired by the Alien franchise of movies, which you know, fits the game's theme quite well. The city of Mega Primus, while theoretically being just a location that the game is set in, feels alive. It's run by numerous mega corporations that are constantly at odds with each other, and it's them that you have to protect to secure the funding for progress. And nearly every step of the way, interests of these groups will clash somehow and directly oppose one another, so you'll need to make a lot of difficult choices along the campaign. Because it's impossible to please everyone, and the sooner you realize it, the better. And if you anger one of the corpus enough, it may not only become your enemy and engage you in combat, but even join the alien side. Caution and careful planning in XCOM should really be applied to any and all, big or small decisions and day-to-day occurrences in the city. If you hire scientists or purchase something, anything, all these have to be delivered to your base, and don't just magically appear in it. So transports, as they're on their way, are susceptible to ambushes and attacks and have to be protected. Well, at least if you know that you're at odds with someone or aliens are around. As much as Apocalypse never received as wide popularity and success as the two earlier games did, it was an amazing, even if underrated title, and all fans of the originals, if they only give it a chance, will most definitely love it. It's a true sequel and not an add-on or a reskin that The Terror from the Deep to a certain degree was. But most of all, it's a good time, for weeks on end. I promise. Well no, scratch that. Good time if you're good enough to answer the call, that is. Cause failing in XCOM is always an option too. 1999 Snood is the last commercial puzzle game to release on DOS and a late port of 1996 macOS's original clone of a more well-known puzzle bauble, and conceptually it's nearly one-to-one remake of it, with a difference that instead of colored marbles, in Snood you shoot at the geometrically shaped faces. I mean, shoot faces into faces to be clear, there's no violence in this one, So, gameplay-wise, all is as you expect it to be. You're in control of a slingshot at the bottom of the screen and you shoot different-looking faces upwards, where others are aligned in various patterns. The aim of the game is to complete a stage by clearing it of all of the suspended at the top faces, and you do it by matching them. When 3 or more of the same kind make contact, they are removed. You can remove more with one shot too if they're attached to those that you're clearing at any given moment and not touching ceiling or the other faces. So naturally, the strategy here is to remove as many as possible in the shortest time. It's worth to mention that any shot that fails to remove at least a basic 3 of the screen results with a line of the faces dropping by 1 level. So, all misses contribute to your potential future failure. And I don't have to tell you that the lower the faces get, the more difficult it is to remove them. Especially that some shots may require ricocheting them off the wall to reach the target at the correct angle. If the faces ever manage to cross clearly indicated bottom play area border, it's game over. As you play like some kind of a puzzling WizKid, removing faces like a boss, you have to keep an eye on the board, as at some point skulls will appear on it, and these cannot be matched as you have no skulls to shoot with. So the only way of getting rid of them is to remove the blocks that they're attached to. Snood comes with 5 difficulty levels and set of 50 challenge levels, and as puzzle bubble clones go, it's not bad, but also incredibly annoying to me. Why, you may wonder? Well, believe it or not, it's not the simplistic graphics and sounds that don't look or sound like something that belonged in 1996, let alone 1999. Nope, I'm actually fine with that. I play indies and retro games, I can understand someone not having budget or skills to pull something nicer off, but what grinds my gears in this one, and is annoying as hell too, is that all of the faces have all of the geometrical shapes you could think of, and yet they bounce off walls as if they were all perfectly round. And while it's probably not an issue to anyone but myself, it just does not compute in my programming and makes me question reality. Cause I mean, not only they should rotate, especially when hitting the walls, but they shouldn't fit in all the little gaps between the other faces so easily, given their different shapes. I know, I'm not what you'd define as normal, even though we should not really use these kinds of definitions in 2024, but it is what it is, I am what I am, and I can't enjoy Snood the way it is, despite it being a very fine port indeed. So, I think you will have to try it out and make up your own mind about it. Few rather well-known games, few less so today. It's interesting to see how each genre waved goodbye to the platform and how some went with a bang, while others went out as bangers. But what do you think of them though? Let me know in the comments below. If you liked the video, hit those like and subscribe buttons below, and maybe share it too. It helps more than you know. If you didn't, then don't naturally. It was fun talking to you as usual, and I'll see you, or more accurately, talk to you very soon.